I heard it well.
There's some weather maybe then, the Almighty's just gonna bring downtown.
Doctor, remember you're still on the road, okay?
All right, bring them on in.
Yes, sir.
You got to go on the run last night? Try to make up for it and double it tonight. Are you ready?
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Eisen, the last entry that we were talking about of your visit with Mr. Reinking was the July 18th, 2018. And in between those dates, Dr. Kovach did an individual session on the 23rd. And then your next session with Mr. Reinking was on July 25th of 2018. Is that correct? It's definitely the next session that you noted in your report.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And in that session, you attempted to administer the Spectre test, but he again refused. Is that right?
Yes.
And that session, you don't talk about the actual shooting itself, but you do kind of talk to him about the harassment that he's described. Is that right?
Yes.
And Mr. Reinking began by stating that these people were hacking into my computer, so that was against federal law, and they were breaking into my apartment. So I didn't know what was happening next, so I feared for my life. Which then you questioned him about why he would fear for his life. And he replied that he received death threats on the internet through messages. And he said one of those messages was a video that appeared on his YouTube recommended list and had a Navy SEAL who said, "I'd probably just sneak into your apartment in the middle of the night and slit your throat or something." Now that is the first time he's mentioned death threats, correct?
Correct.
And so that was on your fourth session, and he referenced it and that it was a YouTube video, correct?
Correct.
And no mention of Waffle House connected to that in any way, correct?
Correct.
And he goes on, and you kind of ask him about the harassment, and he tells you that they also made attempts to poison him at a Waffle House in Caryville, Tennessee. Mr. Reinking stated the food tasted a little different. The cook was acting shady with the way he was taking the food out. And he explained he watched the cook take his hash browns out of a different refrigerator than the one where he got the hash browns for all the other customers. And so that is his explanation about Waffle House attempting to poison him. Is that right?
Yes.
And so the sum total of that was that the food tasted a little different, correct?
Yes, that's what he reported on that day.
And so then you questioned him of why would he keep going back to the Waffle House if he was having these issues, which is a logical question. And he responded to you that he thought the Waffle House in Nashville would be different. And then you asked him why he continued to go to the Waffle House in Nashville after he believed he was being targeted by the staff which again, I guess that goes back to the repeating things that were from his journal on his personal computer. Is that right?
Yes.
And he responded that it was practical to go there. How is that freedom when you have to avoid certain places just because you're being stalked? And that is what Mr. Reinking expressed about how he felt about going to that Waffle House in Nashville. Is that correct?
Yes.
And after that session with Mr. Reinking, that was on the 25th, you met with him on the 26th of July, which that's not in your 10/15/18 report, but you have an individual progress note, which again, you don't specifically talk about the Waffle House or the shooting, but in that session with him, you're asking him about why he wants to talk to the media. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And specifically, Mr. Reinking had called Nick Barris with Channel 5 News, and that's what you were asking him about. Is that right?
Yes.
Which I know that you did not have all of the journal entries back then, but since in the last few weeks, you have received all the journal entries. And so you are aware that Mr. Reinking had described in a May 20th, 2017 journal entry, he had described sniping people at a Nelly concert and what vantage point he would take to do that. And he described his 30-06 sniper rifle that he was going to pick people off. Do you remember reading that journal entry?
I do.
And in that journal entry, he said, I'm sure people would wonder why I did it, and then I would have writing and notes to explain it all. I would have people that I called out for help when no one did a damn thing. And you have since read his May 26, 2017 journal entry. Do you recall that he wrote, I want to write the book in a way that makes other people question my sanity because I question it myself. Do you recall that?
Yes.
So May 26, 2017, he is setting up for people to question his sanity, correct?
Correct.
And then May 28, 2017 journal entry, Mr. Reinking says, I want to start shooting cops, trying to plan this as best I can, have as much impact as I can. Hopefully I will have my book out by then and I would become a martyr. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Which again, you did not have that information in your hands to review at the time. The next time that you meet with him, actually Dr. Kovacs meets with him on that same day, that July 26, 2018, and then you meet with him on July 30th, 2018. Do you recall that?
Yes, I recall that.
Which you talked to him about the messages from God, and you had included the majority of the information from your individual session in the 10/15/18 report, but there was one thing that he said that you did not include. It's in your individual note, that Mr. Reinking reported that there have been a lot of times when he received instructions from God but did not comply. Do you recall him saying that?
Yes.
And he also refused any testing that day as well. Now, I believe that you actually met with him on 8/1, but in that meeting, you don't discuss anything about the shooting or the messages or anything like that. Now, Dr. Kovacs meets with him twice before your next meeting. He meets with him on July 31st, 2018 and on August 2nd, 2018. So your last meeting with Mr. Reinking on August 6, 2018, you are questioning him about the incident and the messages. And in that meeting, you were asking him if anyone knew about his plans to shoot the individuals at the Waffle House. And he said that he wrote it on his computer or he spoke it out loud in his apartment and he made it clear so they knew, which you questioned him about that because he wasn't sure. And he told you he could not remember if he said it out loud or wrote it down. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So again, you're questioning him about a lot of the details of what he said up to this point. And you specifically ask him if it would make sense for the victims to have weapons. And that wasn't something where he said something and you asked a follow-up question. You specifically asked him if it would make sense for the victims to have weapons. And he responded to you and said they had weapons, electronic weapons. They created cognitive dissonance. And so you followed up with a question, if the electronic weapons could be used as a defense against a rifle, because that's what Mr. Reinking had. And his response was, I wouldn't recommend that. So you kind of prompted him of whether or not the victims had some threat to him. And his response back to you was they did not, correct?
Correct.
He also told you that he had previously thought about shooting the people targeting before that date, which again, you now know that from the journal entries, that he had multiple entries where he was referencing his plans for a mass shooting, right?
Yes.
And Mr. Reinking said that God had told him to do other things before, but he could not provide examples after being asked multiple times. So you were asking him for example, give me an example, give me an example, and Mr. Reinking could not. Is that right?
Right.
And then he said, again, he's talking about this incident and this message from God, and he said, I only had to shoot 3 people, but I didn't think about it at the time, but I guess I could have brought a paintball gun. Something less final. Dr. Eisen, you would agree that Mr. Reinking's statement of something less final indicates that he understood the nature of his conduct, correct?
Correct.
He also, it indicates that he understood the wrongfulness of his conduct, correct?
I'm not sure that indicates that.
You're not sure that someone no longer being alive would indicate wrongfulness after being shot?
Not if he believed it was in self-defense, no.
Well, self-defense, we've got hash browns that taste a little bit different right now. Right?
Correct.
People saying things that he wrote in his journal. And what he wrote in his journal was that he was planning a mass shooting. Right, Dr. Eisen?
Correct.
Okay. Now that paintball gun reference, did that ring a bell with you?
Yes.
Because again, this command from God was no longer to kill anyone. Now it might be a paintball gun. You know that previously he said he might have supposed to have been shooting a camera. That Mr. Reinking has completely backed off of everything that he told you, correct?
I don't think he backed off. I think he originally told me it was to shoot, not to kill.
Well, he originally told you he was supposed to get a gun. He didn't tell you which one.
Correct.
And he chose a Bushmaster's XM15 and took 90 rounds of ammunition with him, right?
Right.
Okay. He goes on and said that some people may argue that it was the devil communicating with him, but he knew it was God because God is love and the devil is hate and fear. We're given the knowledge of good and evil. Dr. Eisen, you would agree that Mr. Reinking's weighing of good and evil indicates that he understands the wrongfulness of his conduct, correct?
Not of his conduct, but it does indicate he understands the concept of wrongfulness, yes.
So he understands the concept of wrongfulness. Then you go on to ask him, is a very important question. When asked what would have happened if he did not shoot the victims, what would have happened if he did not shoot the victims? He said, then these people would have kept terrorizing me and I would have left the country. But they said, we'll just follow you there. I think that's why God told me to do it, because these people wouldn't have stopped. It could have gone on for 10 years. So the bad tasting hash browns, the people repeating things he said in his journal, the toilet seat being up, the bathroom door being open or closed, that could have gone on for maybe 10 years until he's 39. That was his response to you, correct?
He didn't specify those things, but he did say the 10 years, yes.
And all those things are the things that he's been talking about with the harassment, right?
Correct.
So you did not stop there. You said when asked what God would have done if he did not shoot the victims. What would God have done if you disobeyed him? He said, probably just found another way for me to have peace and success in life. Mr. Reinking told you there was no consequence, correct?
Correct.
Now, Dr. Eisen, you've already testified that you worked with Dr. Kovacs in this evaluation of Mr. Reinking, right?
Yes.
And you are aware that Dr. Kovacs met with Mr. Reinking individually on July 23rd, 2018, right?
Yes.
And you would have reviewed that session before completing your report.
Correct.
And so you are aware that Mr. Reinking told Dr. Kovacs on July 23rd, 2018, that he had had enough of it that night and he went there to get revenge. You are aware that that is what Mr. Reinking told Dr. Kovacs, correct?
Correct.
And in Dr. Kovacs' last meeting with Mr. Reinking, after having met with him on 4 separate occasions, you are aware that Dr. Kovacs' report indicates that Mr. Reinking's mental state at the time of the charges is looking more and more like he had an appreciation of the wrongfulness of his criminal actions, but was acting out of revenge, and that there was not a compelling basis for his lack of appreciation of the wrongfulness, as he has been inconsistent in regard to hearing the voice, to knowing the alleged crimes were wrong, but that God told him to do it, to it being thoughts in his imagination telling him to commit the violent acts. You reviewed that, correct?
Correct.
And again, on July 23rd, 2018, Mr. Reinking said, I had had enough of it that night and I went there to get revenge. Correct?
Correct.
I don't have any other questions.
Redirect.
Good afternoon, Dr. Eisen.
Hello again.
So you were just asked about Dr. Kovacs. So you worked with Dr. Kovacs at MTMHI, correct?
Correct.
He collaborated, I think you said earlier, on your evaluations of Mr. Reinking.
Yes.
And just to be clear, you did a collaborative report with Mr. Kovacs, or Dr. Kovacs, pardon me, August 9th,
Yes.
2018, correct?
Correct.
Into that report, it had your signature, right?
Yes.
Dr. Kovacs' signature.
Correct.
And at that point in time, and there's been all this conversation from the state, like, you know, you didn't have this and you made this opinion, you didn't have that, you made this other opinion. At that point in time, you did a report that said you basically were waiting for additional information to confirm your opinion as to whether or not Mr. Reinking could appreciate wrongfulness, right?
Yes.
And you continued to evaluate Mr. Reinking, correct?
Correct.
Now, Dr. Kovacs, did he continue to meet with Mr. Reinking?
He did.
Okay. And you said collaborative. Even though Dr. Kovacs didn't write the October report, the October 18th, 2018 report, he reviewed it, didn't he?
Yes.
He even adopted it, didn't he?
Yes.
He signed it.
Correct.
And in that report, was it the collective opinion of both you and Dr. Kovacs that Travis Reinking could not appreciate that what he was doing was wrong on the night of April 22nd, 2018?
Yes.
Now, does Dr. Kovacs typically sign reports in your experience with him that he disagrees with?
No.
Would he have done that you know of?
Objection, Your Honor, call for speculation.
Is this it?
Have you ever known him to do it?
I have not.
Yes.
I have not.
Okay. And y'all had discussions about the final, y'all meet and talk about the ultimate opinion that you have?
Yes.
Did you in this particular instance meet with Dr. Kovacs?
Yes.
Now, you guys are not the head folks over at MTMH, I would assume, right? You have
Correct.
a supervisor, correct?
Yes.
Who's that?
Joe Mount.
Okay. And is there somebody at there named Dr. Fights?
Yes, he's in our central office.
Okay. And was he consulted on the opinion?
Yes.
Did he concur in the opinion as well?
He did.
Now, there was a lot said about, I guess the state tried to insinuate that you had failed to disclose, or I guess adequately disclose, that Mr. Reinking had refused testing. Could you turn in your report 8/9/2018, just to refresh your recollection? Page 4. And it's the first full paragraph, second sentence, if you could read that through. Related to testing.
You said page 4?
Yes, of your August 9th, 2018 report.
Are you talking about toward the bottom?
No, first full paragraph at the top.
First
Is there,
paragraph at the top. Okay.
did you
Oh.
state that although he refused psychological testing, he was cooperative and talkative during clinical interviews?
Yes.
Or excuse me, although he refused most psychological testing.
Right.
All right, so that's in your report.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you were asked about videos that whether you would watch the video from outside the Waffle House. Did Travis Reinking himself describe to you what he did outside the Waffle House?
Yes.
And just to be clear, you don't have the authority to go into some police file or detective's files and take information when you're working on a particular case at the request of the court, do you?
Right.
You, like in this case, do you have to request the discovery materials
Yes.
from the state?
Yes.
Did you do that?
Yes.
And it's their responsibility to give you whatever they want to look at, right?
Correct.
So you were asked about the video. You said that you didn't watch the outside. Let me ask you this, the fact that you didn't watch what happened on the outside of that video, does that in any way change your opinion as to Mr. Reinking's ability to appreciate wrongfulness on April 22nd, 2018?
No,
Does it in any way affect your opinion that he suffers from schizophrenia, severe mental illness?
no,
Okay. You were asked about witness statements. Did you, if you didn't review witness statements at one point, either audioed or typed?
no,
Okay. And but you requested all the pertinent information, the discovery from the state, right?
correct.
And you heard Ms. Norman say something earlier about how you would have known that you were doing this so that the state can make a decision about charging or something. You remember that question she asked?
I do.
Did she have every opportunity to send you whatever she wanted you to look at?
Yes.
And did you receive witness statements, audio or otherwise?
No.
Because she actually sent you information, didn't she?
Yes.
She sent you these journals
Correct.
and emailed them over to you and wanted you to review them.
Correct.
And I know there was some issue, but you ultimately reviewed them, correct?
Yes.
And there was some talk about additional information that you reviewed even in the past, 3 weeks, correct?
Yes.
And that included that big stack, or did that include that big stack of journals that she wanted you to read?
Yes.
You were also provided a bunch of videos. We talked about that earlier here recently, correct?
Correct.
And you reviewed those, correct?
Correct.
After reviewing what the state asked you to review, after reviewing the additional materials provided you by the videos that were provided by the defense, did that change your opinion about whether or not Mr. Reinking appreciated that what he was doing was wrong on April 22nd, 2018?
It did not.
Did it have an effect on your opinion? Did it strengthen it?
I believe there was information in there to strengthen it, yes.
In both the information that the state gave you and the videos, correct?
Correct.
Now, did Mr. Reinking get advance notice while he was an inpatient at MTMHI during the evaluation about what test you would be doing and when?
No.
Did you have any indication from all of you've reviewed interactions with Mr. Reinking and the testing you did that Mr. Reinking was malingering?
No.
Now, during the time that you're evaluating Mr. Reinking, was he, in your opinion, severely mentally ill?
Yes.
Was he, at that time, experiencing hallucinations,
Yes.
delusions,
Yes.
disorganized thinking?
Yes.
And could you see that other than just the self-report of Mr. Reinking by your own observations?
Yes.
You were asked a whole lot about general concepts of right and wrong. Regardless of general concepts of right and wrong, I want to ask you specifically as to Mr. Reinking. On the night of April 22nd, 2018, could he appreciate that what he was doing in going into that Waffle House and opening fire, could he appreciate that that was wrong?
I don't believe so.
Did he believe what he was doing was self-defense?
Yes, I believe so.
So, and in one of your interviews with Mr. Reinking, regarding his belief of self-defense, didn't he in fact say that any logical person would see that what I did was self-defense?
Yes.
And was it your opinion that his plan had no basis in reality, but was based on his delusional thinking about the CIA, the FBI, aliens, and others involved in a conspiracy to harass and harm him?
Yes.
And that's a statement, that's not a statement made, that particular one was made to you during an interview with Mr. Reinking, correct?
Correct.
Now, these meetings with Mr. Reinking, are they intended to be interrogations?
No.
So you were asked, well, did you say this in this meeting? He didn't say it in that meeting? How are these conducted? What's the point?
The point is to get as much information from him about what he was thinking during and prior to and after, immediately following the crimes.
Are you attempting to get every fact known to Mr. Reinking out in each and every meeting?
No.
And when you're reviewing the facts, if he further elaborates, or someone further elaborates or gives more detail to something they've already talked about, are you sitting there thinking, oh, that's absolutely a lie now, that's inconsistent? He didn't tell me that last time.
No, that's pretty common for people telling stories, like telling about something that happened previously.
And again, what effect does this disorganized thinking that he's experiencing have on his ability to sit down and engage in these conversations in a logical way?
It has a negative effect on it. He doesn't have the same kind of coherent linear thoughts that someone without psychosis would have.
Now, the prosecutor asked you some questions about, well, the toilet seat and moving things around. But even in your 7/25/2018 meeting with Mr. Reinking, did he in fact say, I feared for my life?
Yes.
Now, from your meetings with Mr. Reinking, did he perceive this as just someone like someone lives in the house with you leaving the toilet seat up?
No.
What was his perception of what was happening?
He indicated his perception was that someone was breaking in to mess with him and might cause harm to him.
Now, you were asked about flight. This idea that Mr. Reinking, after the shooting, left. Now, you opined about that specifically in your report.
Correct.
And just to refresh your recollection, go to page 10 of 10 of your 10/15/2018 report. And right towards the top of the page, after the three little I section down there, we have a sentence that said it should be noted. Can you read that to yourself?
Read it to myself?
Just read it. Are you familiar with what it says?
Yes.
Okay. What does it say?
You want me to read it out loud this time? Okay. He said it should be noted that evading arrest is often a sign that the person understands the wrongfulness of his or her actions. However, due to Mr. Reinking's belief that the police were part of a conspiracy against him, parentheses, corroborated by the recording of his phone call to a dispatcher, it is logical that he would run from the police.
And this phone call to the dispatcher, are you referencing some of the materials you reviewed earlier? Where Mr. Reinking called the police to
Yeah.
try to report what was happening to him?
Yes,
And in that phone call, does he indicate he believes they're in on it?
yes.
Now, I want to go back to your interview with Mr. Reinking from 7/30 of 2018. Now, you were asked a lot about outside the Waffle House. Okay? You recall Mr. Reinking, and there's a part in here where he says they sent a man to the Waffle House to turn on his hazard lights. Remember that?
Yes.
And do you recall, and if you need to look, that's fine too, but do you recall what was significant for Mr. Reinking about the gentleman with the hazard lights?
I know that he reported that he believed that individual was taunting him. Was there something else you're referring to?
Right. And was there something about the number 3 that Mr. Reinking referenced right after that?
I'm sorry, what page of the report are you on?
Let's see, give me just a second. Page 7, your 7:30 interview with Mr. Reinking.
So was this in the August report?
No, in the October report.
Page 7 of the October report.
Oh, pardon me. And the judge was accurate. I went to a
Okay, the
different
other
report.
report.
Page 7 of the 8/6/18 report. I apologize.
Later restored my reputation.
Yes.
Page 7, the August 9th report. All right?
Yes. And do you recall, just without the report, let's do it like this. Do you
Okay.
recall Mr. Reinking talking to you about the number 3?
Yes.
What did he say?
He said the number 3 has had special significance to him, including the Holy Trinity, him and his 2 wives. He sent 333 Starbursts to Taylor Swift?
Okay. And did he recall seeing that number as the night on April 22nd, 2018?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the district attorney asked you some questions about, in the August 6, 2018 interview with Mr. Reinking, about his statements about having previously thought about shooting the people targeting him before the date of the offense. So if you could look at again, in the October report, bottom of page 7. It's your 8/6/2018 interaction.
Mhm.
Very bottom of the paragraph, bottom of the page.
Mhm.
Did Mr. Reinking give an explanation for why he had not previously acted on these thoughts about shooting people targeting him?
He stated, quote, "Yeah, I thought about it, but I never had the validation from God."
And what's the next sentence say?
If he tells me this is what you gotta do, then I'm gonna go do it.
And then the district attorney had asked you this last part about Mr. Reinking said that God told him to do other things before, but he could not provide examples. Now, go to the middle of the paragraph on page 8 from that same
Okay.
Interaction. All right. Have you read through that? Did Mr. Reinking state that he felt angry about people harassing him?
Yes.
Did he also, in that same sentence, make a statement about the actions at the Waffle House?
Yes.
What did he say?
He said, but I would have never done it unless God told me to do it.
Now, that same paragraph down at the bottom, again, the district attorneys characterized this in toilet seats and moving of files, but how did Mr. Reinking proceed? In his words, if he hadn't followed God's direction on April 22nd, 2018 in his own mind, they would have kept doing what to him?
He said terrorizing him.
From your interactions with Mr. Reinking, did he perceive what was happening to him in some small way, or did it appear to be terrifying him?
It appeared to be terrifying him.
If you watched these videos, 30 plus videos, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
And in those videos, are you able to, is it Mr. Reinking and a lot of them just talking into the camera?
Yes.
And from the videos that you watched, is it the case that Mr. Reinking started doing that to document what he perceived was happening to him to hope to get help?
Yes, that's what he reported in the videos.
Do you see him talking about what's happening, what he perceives is happening in his mind?
Yes.
How does he look?
He looks very agitated. He looks scared at a lot of points.
And when you're in a situation when you're trying to determine what's going on with someone, when you're asked by the court to talk about wrongfulness and serious mental disease on a certain date, how important is it for you to be able to look back and see a history of behavior?
It's very important in determining that the person actually had a mental illness prior to reporting it to us during the evaluation.
Isn't it true that Mr. Reinking is repeatedly, regardless of whether it's been all in the same interaction, insisted that he was justified in what he did because he was defending himself?
Yes.
And you were asked a lot about these journals. I want you to turn to page 9 of that same October report.
Okay.
And it is referenced in a paragraph numbered 6 on that page.
Okay.
Can you read that?
Yeah, it says that in a journal entry on January 14th, 2018, he stated, quote, "If I continue to feel threatened and endangered by these people and I take action to defend myself, then I will be doing the right thing, end quote.
And that was from those same journals that the state was having you reference in walkthrough, correct?
Correct.
So based on your review of all this information, everything you reviewed, at the time you were meeting with Mr. Reinking, through today's date, all the videos, regardless of any general concepts of right and wrong, could Travis Reinking, did he understand that what he did on April 22nd, 2018 was wrong?
It is my opinion that he did not.
Well, no. There's one other thing. You were asked about a statement. Let me find it here. Page 5. I'm gonna clear this up. You were asked about a statement that was in your interview with Mr. Reinking on July 18th, 2018. And specifically, there was language that was read in earlier. It says, then I remember just feeling like I was going to throw up because I was like, this is something that God told me to do, but it seems evil. You remember that?
Yes.
And there was a point at which with the prosecutor, and I'm not going to repeat the word, but read the N-word, right?
I read it.
Inaccurate statement.
It's-
Same read.
Well, there was a point at which, after that, she said it seemed foreboding, and then there were two guys outside, and one guy outside yelled something like
Yes.
what? Like O-S-H-I-T,
Yes.
that N-word's dead, right?
Correct.
That wasn't Mr. Reinking. And when he said that, that wasn't him saying he said that, was it?
No, he was saying that someone else said that.
Those are my questions.
Your call.
Yes, Your Honor, which Dr. Eisen, that was Mr. Reinking speaking that phrase to you. That wasn't anyone else, correct?
Yes, he was.
He said that word.
Yes, he was repeating what he said. He heard someone else say. Yes.
Okay. And you just testified that you said seeing the video of Mr. Reinking gunning down Joe Perez Jr. and Torian Sonderland would have no effect on your opinion.
I don't think that's what I said.
So it would have an effect on your opinion.
I can't say that if I've never seen it. He said,
Exactly. You haven't seen that video.
Judge, she needs to let her respond. She's cutting her off.
Well, I thought she did, but just be careful about cutting in before the answers complete.
You haven't seen that video, Dr. Eisen, correct?
correct.
So if you just testified on redirect that it would not affect your opinion, that is not a true statement, is it?
I did not say that.
Okay, because you cannot say that.
Correct. I can't say that for sure.
Surveillance video was provided by our office. You were not able to play all of the files.
It was not provided by your office. It's provided by Dr. Woods. I did not get it from your office.
Okay.
I had to ask her for it.
Dr. Woods got it from our office and she gave it to you.
Correct.
No one else had access to that video in July of 2018. It was just Dr. Wood and you. And you only watched the video from the inside of the Waffle House.
Yes, me or my IT department could not get it to work.
And so you are here today testifying under oath about your opinion about whether or not Mr. Reinking could appreciate the wrongfulness of his conduct when he killed Joe Perez Jr. That is what you are here testifying about. And you have not seen that video of the actual act, correct?
Correct.
And you are here testifying today about Travis Reinking going down Torian Sonderland, striking him 7 times. And you have not viewed that video, correct?
Correct.
You didn't see him take that assault rifle and train it on him as Torian ran from him, have you?
No.
But you are here giving your expert opinion today, Dr. Eisen, are you not?
I am.
And you are fully aware that Travis Reinking made this statement that he was going to punish them by taking something they couldn't take back, some of their own lives. You are aware that Travis Reinking said that, correct?
Correct.
And you are aware that he said he did this for revenge, aren't you?
Yes.
Thank you, Doctor. Next step down. Pardon? Madam Chair, we're going to take a short recess, please. Do not discuss anything about the case. You thought yourself, you may know your mind.
And closing up with something, leave the chair to follow me, please.
You need to address the court. Your Honor, I want to ask for a recess because that's going to conclude our proof, and we are going to, we're prepared
Good
to,
long hearing.
yeah, we're prepared to do that hearing. We have a signed waiver, and so I thought the court might want to do that before we stand up and say that we rest.
Yeah, definitely. So we can get Mr. Reinking to come around.
You raise your right hand, sir. You solemnly swear upon to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
All right, come around, Mr. Reinking. We're not going to ask you anything about the case itself. We're just going to ask you about some decisions that you may or may that you may have made. As it relates to whether or not you're going to testify.
Mr. Reinking, have we discussed your right to testify at this trial if you want to?
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand that you have the right not to testify, and that if you choose not to testify, the jury may not draw any inference from your failure to testify? Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. And do you understand that you have the right to testify, and that if you wish to exercise that right, no one can stop you from testifying? Do you understand that?
I understand.
Okay. And have you consulted with your lawyers in making the decision as to whether or not you want to testify?
I have.
Okay. And have we advised, that your lawyers advised you of the advantages and disadvantages of testifying?
Yes.
And after considering your rights and asking any questions that you had regarding those rights, do you voluntarily and personally choose to waive your right to testify?
I do.
Okay. And then You recall we signed on a piece of paper earlier going over all that with you. Do you recall that?
I recall.
Okay.
All right, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Ryan, can we say that? Yeah, that's it. Are you ready to proceed with the rebuttal? You're gonna have rebuttal, I guess I should ask that first. Yeah, let's take about 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes or so. Get them lined up.
Listen, bro. You're misrepresenting what you fucking said earlier. This is where I get fucking irritated, people. This is where I get fucking irritated. If you haven't watched this fucking trial, shut the fuck up. It's really that simple. It's that simple. Shut the fuck up and just watch. You're the fucking idiots that sit and watch a movie and ask fucking questions in the middle of the fucking movie. Shut the fuck up and watch the movie. It's not fucking complicated. Fucking David's over here. I heard in today's trial that he was admitted to the nut house and just said, I don't know why he was released. Right, because you don't watch the fucking trial. Both of you and Nikki, both said, well, you can't own a gun if you're fucking crazy. No shit. But you have to be fucking documented fucking crazy, right? You have to be documented crazy. And if you both would have fucking been here to watch the trial, you wouldn't be sitting here arguing this. He bought the fucking guns prior to being documented, a fucking lunatic. That's really simple. They said that in the trial. You guys want to say, oh my God, well, how did he have the fucking guns? Why is he out here fucking shooting people? He's in the fucking mental ward. How the fuck does he have guns? Pay attention to the fucking trial. You're over here getting mad at mama and daddy for fucking driving them around town. If you don't have a fucking child with some type of mental health fucking issue, especially a serious one that causes you to have just all type of fucking delusional shit, shut the fuck up. It's really simple. Shut the fuck up. You don't get to have a fucking opinion. Who the fuck are you to have a fucking opinion about what a parent should do with their kid who has severe fucking issues on how to fucking properly parent them? Shut the fuck up. You people are half fucking dumb. Fuck. Just shut the fuck up and pay attention to the trial. Seriously. And even if you have kids and they don't have fucking issues, should we punish you for every wrong fucking thing that they do? Well, any parent would blah, blah, blah. No, the fuck, that's not how it works. Not all parents are the same. Not all parents do the exact same shit. Not all parents fucking parent how your mama fucking parented. You ever fucking deal with a kid that has severe fucking issues? David's over here still with this shit. No person shall. Shut the fuck up with the shit, bro. He got his fucking gun license prior to anyone realizing there was any fucking issue. He surrendered fucking guns once something was fucking documented. How the fuck he had this fucking Bushmaster, I don't know. But he did. So quit reciting fucking law and fucking gun owner shit. You're not even watching the trial. You're over here arguing, well, he should have never had this fucking gun because no person locked up in a fucking mental ward gets to have a fucking gun. None of this shit was fucking documented. All of this fucking crazy shit that you're fucking listening to now, all the fucking experts that are coming in heavily fucking talking about how fucking twack this dude may be, is after he's in fucking prison. There were minor fucking police reports, minor issues in various fucking cities and states Watch the trial and shut the fuck up. You happy now? See, and for those of you that don't understand, a lot of this shit has carried over from a fucking Instagram argument into this morning. And my patience level is fucking gone. Now, I've asked you politely all fucking day long. Quit provoking a fucking reaction from me. Quit trying to fucking argue with me. I have given you a lot of motherfucking leniency. And my patience is gone. I hope you can fucking tell this. Enough. One more fucking thing from you, bro. I have no issue banning you. None. You already know the fucking rules of my platform. Enough. I've said it 27 fucking times today. I have zero fucking patience level at this point. Enough. If you're not going to watch the trial, get the fuck off the platform and go watch something else. Or watch the trial, shut the fuck up, pay attention, and then we can all discuss. Now, as far as this dude being fucking crazy, I don't know. Was it planned? Maybe. There's many things to suggest something severely fucking wrong with him. And then there's other things that suggest maybe he fucking planned it. I've said 100 times. It's funny how he fucking reacts when the jury's not in the room. Then the jury comes in the room and he reacts fucking completely different. I caught on to that. It bothered me. There's a lot of things that are being discussed right now. So if he is fucking crazy, let's murder him, right? Let's murder him. Let's shoot him up and blow his fucking legs off. The fuck is wrong with you people? If there's something fucking fried in his brain where he literally cannot fucking distinguish between reality and fucking whatever the fuck world his brain just went camping in, you want to fucking blow his fucking head off? Let's do that to every fucking mentally disabled fucking child, right? Every kid with fucking Down syndrome, fucking autism, fucking schizophrenia, fucking bipolar, fucking learning. What the fuck? What he did is fucking tragic and absolutely fucking horrible. He's never getting out. Never. Now it's a matter of, does he go sit in fucking prison? Or does he sit in a place that can maybe correct his fucking brain? I'm sitting here, this is why I just, fuck. Then you're over here thanking fucking Melissa. I said the same shit, but fuck, I'm fucking ignored. I've been telling you the same shit all fucking day. He got the fucking gun license and the fucking guns before he was fucking diagnosed with schizophrenia. Been saying it all fucking day. All day. 5.5 fucking hours. This is what I'm talking about. You focus on one fucking thing and don't shut the fuck up long enough to focus on the entire context. No, I didn't tell you the first time 3 minutes ago. Go back and watch the other fucking stream. I've been telling you this shit all fucking morning. You keep saying the same shit because you're not fucking listening. Something else I've been arguing about all fucking morning. Fuck, man. This is why I hate streaming. This is why I hate dealing with you stupid motherfuckers. I can't stand it. I really can't. You guys don't pay attention. And even when shit is fucking pointed out to you, you still ignore it. You choose to fucking hear only what you want. That's it. You choose to see only what you want. That's it. And it's not just on my platform, it's everybody's fucking platform. You don't fucking pay attention. If it's not within your fucking narrative, you can't see it. Even if it's big enough to slap you in the fucking face, you can't see it. But you want to sit there and you want to argue your motherfucking opinion all motherfucking day long. Unfucking real. You happy you got a fucking reaction out of me? Because when you get reactions out of me, you get lit the fuck up on my platform. You want to be a fucking Dunsky? Now you get fucking lit up like a fucking Dunsky. Shut the fuck up and watch the fucking movie. Okay? We've been streaming the movie for fucking days now. All day. Wasting my fucking time to argue with you. Because you can't shut the fuck up long enough to watch the movie. Now, are we done? Are we gonna fucking shut up? And if we haven't watched the entire movie, zip it. You don't get to have a fucking opinion because you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Go watch the entire start of the movie, then come back and have a fucking opinion. The first half of the day, I spent arguing. I missed the entire fucking line of testimony. Because I'm focused on dumb fuck shit. Pay attention. For fuck's
Wait a
sake.
minute, wait a minute, hold on.
So Judge, at this point, I'll refer to the court's guidance on it. I know the state intends to call some rebuttal proof. It may be something that's better decision to initially take up outside the presence of the jury. If they're calling things that we're going to object to as not proper rebuttal.
Okay. Have him go sit down for a minute.
Yes, sir.
What is it that you submit as being, going to be addressed on rebuttal and it's not admissible?
Well, Judge, we're not aware of every rebuttal witness they intend to call. There's been some discussions about a deposition that was taken earlier for proof of her name's Miss, I think it's Jacobson, who was the car dealer at the BMW dealership.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that to be proper rebuttal. If they wanted to prove what happened at the BMW dealership, they had every right to put it on in their case in chief. They did not elect to do that. At this point, it's not in contest. The expert reviewed her audio statement, said this is what happened. There wasn't even any cross of her to suggest that wasn't accurate about how Mr. Reinking reacted. They asked her if Mr. Reinking got aggressive, or would you agree that was aggressive, or he made an aggressive move, something like that. The expert said, yep. So that would be one, I don't think that's proper rebuttal.
The state would disagree with that. She didn't simply concede that it occurred in the way that it actually did. She did say she reviewed the audio of it in making her determination. Dr. Wood did not concede that he wasn't, as aggressive in the way that Jenna Jacobson has already testified in the oath that he was. And additionally, she did not, testify about the nature to which he fled from the police. She didn't simply concede that either. And so the state doesn't intend to put that evidence on the police with regard to stealing the BMW. We intend to have the officers who pursued Mr. Reinking as he fled from the BMW dealership discuss, I guess testify rather, to what they observed. There will not be testimony with regard to, they didn't have direct contact with Mr. Reinking in terms of his, having a conversation with him. Obviously, he would have been arrested, and at least 4 people would probably take that life. But
they're gonna suggest that he fled
Yes.
in the vehicle and that they stopped pursuit because of danger to self or others, type thing.
they're going to say, essentially, they're going to say they stopped pursuit because of,
Possible dangers.
yes.
What's it rebut? They had every opportunity to prove the BMW incident in their case in chief. This was not,
Well, they don't
even a
have,
minute.
well, wait a minute, though, they don't have a burden to prove
But they get to choose, they don't get to just come back and put new evidence in or additional witnesses on to prove events that they could have proved. They went into the BMW issue. They could have put that on. It's not, and otherwise, it's not rebuttal. There's nothing in contest about it. We didn't put something on and say it didn't happen, or he didn't flee, or they didn't.
Well, his perception is that they did not pursue him, they didn't come after him, they didn't care. So I think that part is rebuttal.
Well, I mean,
From the officer's standpoint, well, I mean, because he tells the mental health people that part of his logic and thinking is that, well, he didn't even come after me with the BMW, I'm invisible, they don't care.
Okay, but what is a rebut? So they get up there and say we did come after him. What effect does that have on the evidence that we put on?
The fact that shortly before this, that even though he may be schizophrenic, that he was capable of knowing that what he was doing was wrong, and that this wasn't just a simple retaking of a BMW that belonged to him.
But the whole wrongfulness, this is before the incident. This has nothing to do with wrongfulness. This is before the incident.
It has to do with his general mental state. I mean, we went back to 2015.
Are they rebutting it? This is what I don't understand. If they can say specifically what that evidence rebuts based on what we put on in our defense. That's the
I
question.
think, I don't know what her testimony is, because I haven't read that, although if it's admitted, that last part will, the other part will be taken out of what this other person that she apparently knew, who was schizophrenic and had a good job, has nothing relevancy on this, and certainly is probably zero. The only thing I know for sure is that his perceptions that he wasn't being pursued, that the police didn't care, and he had to take matters into his own hands, is rebutted by the fact that he knew the police were chasing him and he took off running and they had to stop. That part I think is rebuttal.
And then at best, that's an officer.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know you the facts.
I mean, if that's what the court's gonna rule, we don't agree with, but if the court says they can put on rebuttal to show that he said, he told them that they didn't come after him, but there was proof that they did, at best, that's a police officer, that's not Jenna Jacobson.
Yeah, I don't know anything about what she's gonna say other than, I mean, everybody agrees he went and took a BMW without permission.
We're not in dispute.
Although his position was, he had a right to take it.
That's right.
Okay, and that's where I think the police pursued, he knew he was being pursued. I would assume they were gonna testify that, they put on blue lights or something and then called it off, I don't know.
We may just give some kind of explanation. Dr. Witt's testimony, she described the BMW salesperson, I don't think she called her a salesperson, she said it was a girl, it was like, oh, he just took it, it was no big deal. That is not the testimony of the victim of that incident. It was a carjacking, it was taken by force. So that is the rebuttal it is also directly related to the motive for these murders and attempted murders. So it has two purposes, but it is direct rebuttal to what they put on through Dr. Wood. They did not have to ask Dr. Wood about that, but they did, and she clearly, I don't think you can call it minimizing it, she mischaracterized it.
And if I may, Judge, there's a third purpose for it, which is that this will be lay testimony that goes directly to his mind state, close in time to the murders. And that is absolutely an issue in this case. That is what these expert witnesses that the defense called came to testify about. They tell us that he only acted in self-defense, and the state is submitting, we tried to argue, bringing out through the cross-examination, that the reason that he did it was because he stole this BMW, and then the police came and recovered it. It wasn't self-defense, it was anger, it was revenge. That goes directly to the issues that are at the heart of the defense case, for which we do not have a verdict. So we have the right to present rebuttal proof in order to argue against or challenge their argument that he was insane. So that's what this proof will go towards.
Yeah, I mean, her testimony, when they're talking about the BMW and Dr. Woods, said that, he started repossessing various things, because he had a casket collecting like the salvage of my belongings. He described as repossessing the BMW as well as other items, and having dinner at Logan's Safe House to reward himself. He was a good deed guy.
Judge, I just was perfectly correct. It was asked clearly by the Supreme whether he took it by force. And it was conceded by the expert that it was taken by force. So, and this idea of motive, they can put it on to show motive, that's a case in chief thing. And the case law is clear, that rebuttal is not intended to allow them to change litigation strategy.
No, I agree. I don't find, I mean, that would be argument. Is there anything in, I mean, there's no way that the woman can testify that what his motive, what he did there ultimately was his motive for doing anything.
Yes, sir.
I mean, if they want to argue that, they can, but I don't think there's any evidence for that this BMW incident was motive for him to go to Waffle House and do what he did. So, is that two that you have? Is there any other?
Witnesses? Yes, Judge, there are other witnesses. We have an individual who testified with regard to defendant establishing his plan to go and carry out this murder. You want me to give you a progress of what his testimony was?
Well, I mean, is there other things that?
Well, I mean,
We don't know what else is coming to know this result. That's the whole point.
They don't have to lay it out. I mean, you just object when it comes up.
And to be clear, no witness we're calling. Everyone that we're calling has been previously provided to the defense counsel in discovery. So we're not throwing out
All
somebody.
right, let's get them in here and get started.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, can I just very quickly on Mr. Jacobson's video?
Yeah, take out the, like,
Just to be clear, y'all has it up there.
I don't have it in front of me, there's no on my desk, but it asked something about, somebody she knew that was totally unrelated.
I would suggest that page 35, everything from line 11 down is what.
and
I would be glad to put it off my desk, it was kind of like it on the one I had.
That's right.
We're in agreement.
Okay.
So we will stop it at that point and provide a redacted copy.
Not the transcript.
Transcript card, along with the, yes.
And the transcript was by certified court reporter,
Yes, sir.
so it's gonna be submitted as, an exhibit.
a collective exhibit with the video, subject to me.
And we'll need some time to redact the video. So we'll have it tomorrow.
But you'll be ready to shut it off today.
Yes, Judge. General Norman is gonna be right there on this one. As always.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for the record, line of Adam was forward and the time like don't mind that all. You see the police? Anything heard from the defense? All you heard?
Good for us.
All right. The jury of defense has completed this case in chief, and now we're here just to see if there's any rebuttal from the state.
Yes, there will be, Judge.
All you heard from them.
State calls Officer Brent Phelan.
Sir, if you would raise your right hand if you sworn, please. Solemnly swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Good afternoon, officer. Would you please state your name and spell it?
Officer Brent Phelan, P as in Paul, Helan.
All right. And Officer Phelan, where are you employed?
The Brentwood Police Department.
And were you employed at the Brentwood Police Department on April 17, 2018?
Yes, sir.
And what is your position at the Brentwood Police Department?
At that time and currently I'm a member of the department's directed enforcement team, which is primarily responsible for traffic enforcement, crash and traffic homicide investigations.
Okay. On April 17, 2018, did you receive a call to respond to a potential stolen vehicle involving the BMW dealership?
Yes.
And is the BMW dealership located at 1568 Mallory Lane?
Yes.
And what did you do once you received the call?
So it had been put out that the vehicle that was stolen from the BMW dealership had been followed by a third party to the area of Concord Road and Jones Parkway, which was where I was at the time on routine patrol. I was traveling westbound and observed a vehicle matching the description, which was given was a gray BMW X6 SUV. I observed a vehicle matching that description traveling eastbound on Concord Road, at which time I made a U-turn and entered traffic behind the vehicle. I had to maneuver around another citizen vehicle, uninvolved, to get directly behind the BMW. At the time I did that, I observed that the vehicle was not displaying a license plate, which was also consistent with the description provided by BMW. At that time, due to being in an unmarked unit, I stayed behind the vehicle to wait for other officers to respond to the area. Once I observed Officer Caleb Andrews running up the center turn lane in a marked unit, I activated my emergency lights at that point and attempted to initiate a traffic stop.
Did you also attempt to put on your sirens?
Yes, sir. So after I initiated the emergency lights, the vehicle continued in the stop and go traffic flow for a few seconds. After that, I initiated my siren, and at the time that I activated my siren is when the X6 entered the center turn lane and began actively fleeing by overtaking traffic. Was the center turn lane a lane in which a person would normally travel during in the flow of traffic like that? No. And you said that the driver was actively fleeing from you? Correct. At this time, my lights and siren were activated. There was another row of police vehicle behind me with lights and siren activated. As soon as we had cleared an initial block of traffic congestion, per department policy, at that point, I yielded primary pursuit position to the marked unit that was behind me. And at which point the marked unit took over the primary position, which is directly behind the suspect vehicle. And then I followed as secondary unit to call the pursuit.
Okay, and did the mark unit have on its license sirens?
Yes.
And about how long did you travel behind the driver of this BMW X6?
The pursuit was initiated, if I remember, it was 5:51 p.m. and was terminated at 5:53 p.m. The distance traveled, pursuit was initiated in the area of Concord Road and Haverhill Drive and was terminated by the on-duty patrol supervisor in the area of Edmondson Pike.
And why was the pursuit terminated?
My understanding was that was because BMW was aware that we were made aware that the vehicle had active GPS tracking, and there was no longer a need to risk public safety by tracking the vehicle visually when it could be tracked passively.
And why was there concern for public safety?
Because of the time of day and traffic congestion and rush hour.
Were there a number of cars on the road?
There was moderate to heavy traffic on the stretch of road.
Oh, were you able to observe the driver?
I did not observe the driver at the time I turned around. My primary focus at that point being in an unmarked unit, I was attempting to make a U-turn in traffic without using my blue lights, and not getting hit was kind of my priority, but I immediately recognized the vehicle as that was given by BMW.
I believe those are my questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Officer Taylor. Just a few questions. You said that you followed Mr. Reinking for 2 minutes, correct?
The pursuit actually lasted 2 minutes. It was at 5:48 p.m. was when the call was dispatched, or dispatch advised that he was in the area. And then the pursuit was initiated at 5:51 p.m. I was probably behind him for, I would say, approximately a minute or so prior to that, with no lights or anything on, just in an unmarked.
In an unmarked car. So he would have no idea that you're a police officer until you turn your lights on because you got an unmarked car, right?
Theoretically.
And when you say the word pursuit, you mean you turned your lights on and you followed him for about 2 minutes with your lights on, right?
And siren.
And siren. All right. And you said it was from somewhere on Concord Road to Edmondson Pike.
Correct. From Haverhill Drive to Edmondson Pike.
Okay. And about how far is that, roughly?
So approximately 1.5 miles, 2 miles.
Okay. And I think in your report, you noted that you when you followed behind him with your lights and everything on, y'all were going approximately 40 miles an hour, right?
The speed for the pursuit ranged between 40 and 50 miles an hour. They did not
Okay.
exceed 50.
For 2 minutes for about 1.5 miles, but
Correct.
40 to 50 miles an hour. Okay. That's all.
Thank you, Officer.
The state now calls Caleb Andrews.
I'm objecting to 403 excuse.
Now, this testimony would be different.
So if you would raise your right hand, each one, please. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Caleb Andrews. Good afternoon, sir. Would you please state your name for the record?
Caleb Andrist,
And how do you spell your last name?
Andrist.
And were you previously employed as a police officer at the Brentwood Police Department?
Yes, sir.
And were you employed as an officer on April 17, 2018?
Yes, sir.
On that date, did you respond to a call of a stolen vehicle involving the BMW dealership in in Williamson County?
Yes.
And what did you do once you received the call?
I was kind of in the area where the call came out. The call was in the south part of town. I was in the southeast part of town. When the call came out, we were getting kind of delayed updates as far as the GPS goes to where the vehicle was headed. So as we were getting these updates, it said that the vehicle was going on 65. There's also a follower of that vehicle, and they followed it on to 65, and then it got onto Concord Road and was heading east, and that was kind of where I was. So I started heading west on Concord Road and intercepted the car on Concord.
When you say you intercepted the car, what do you mean?
We passed each other. We saw the vehicle going, I should say I saw the vehicle going east on Concord. I was traveling west on Concord. So that's what I meant when I say intercept.
And were you driving a marked police unit?
I was, yes. I was in a marked patrol car.
And just to be clear, what does that mean?
It means light sirens, lettering. It is a plain marked police car.
It says police on
It
the
says
outside?
Brentwood Police on the side, yes.
Okay, and was it daytime or nighttime?
Daytime.
Okay. And when you intercepted the BMW that you were looking for, were you able to see who was inside the vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. And could you give me a description of the driver?
Yeah, he was a thin white male. I don't know height because he was sitting down, but thin white male, blondish hair. But I just remember him looking at me and me looking at him as we passed each other.
The two of you made eye contact?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And what did you do after you passed him?
As soon as I passed him, I turned around to initiate a traffic stop.
Okay. And what do you mean by that?
Because we're going opposite directions, I had to make a U-turn on Concord Road. So when that happened, Officer Phelan, who was just up here testifying, was actually in front of me to start with, and he was in his unmarked patrol vehicle. And so I pulled a U-turn right behind him, and at that time, he initiated his traffic lights, or his overhead lights. I did the same, and also our sirens as well.
Once you put on your lights and sirens, what did the vehicle, the BMW, do? The driver do?
Initially, it looked. You could see him look in the rearview mirror. Back, you could tell that you could see the vehicles, the patrol vehicles behind him, and he kind of just stopped in traffic. And then traffic, it was around rush hour, so there was a lot of traffic on Concord Road at the time. When he stepped in traffic for just a couple seconds, he actually went into the middle lane, the turn lane, and passed vehicles in the middle lane. That's when we got behind him and continued to try to pursue him and stop him.
Okay, and did he ever stop for you?
No.
And at some point in time, did you have to cut off the pursuit?
Yes, based on traffic and the fact that there was GPS in the vehicle. At the time, we didn't know anything other than the vehicle was stolen. There was GPS on the vehicle, so it was terminated shortly into the pursuit.
Okay. And after you terminated the pursuit, did you at some point in time continue your involvement with that investigation?
With the investigation, but not with the pursuit or anything like that.
Right. And so what did you do as part of the investigation afterwards?
Later on that evening, Metro Police called or contacted our department and said that they did locate the vehicle at an apartment complex. And so I went out to that apartment complex and dusted for fingerprints. I was a crime scene technician at the time. Dusted for prints on that vehicle.
And do you recall what part of town that apartment complex was in?
I believe it was in Antioch. I'm not real familiar with Davidson County. I did all my work in Brentwood.
Okay. Do you recall the address that it was located at?
I do not.
Would perhaps seeing your police report help refresh your recollection of it?
Yes.
And Mr. Andrews, have you been able to refresh your recollection as to the address that
Yes.
you recovered the vehicle from?
Yes.
And what was that?
5000 Mountain Springs Drive in Antioch.
Antioch, Tennessee.
Antioch, Tennessee, yes.
Okay. When you when you recovered the vehicle, you said you were dusting it for fingerprints and whatnot. Do you recall seeing any of the dealership paperwork that is usually on the window of one of the vehicles?
No, there's a process that we do. We start from top and work our way down. And if anything was on there, I would have noticed that because we wouldn't have been able to dust there. Because it would have obscured the fingerprints with the stickers, things like that.
Okay. And just, I guess the last question is, when you went to that apartment complex to recover the vehicle, was it nighttime?
Yes, it was dark outside.
Okay, those are my questions.
Officer, you said that the pursuit was short. Did you stop the pursuit at the same time that Officer Phelan did?
We did, yes. It came over the radio. Our sergeant terminated the pursuit and we stopped at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Officer.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Wagner?
Your Honor, the state's next witness would be the video deposition of Jenna Jacobson.
Madam Jury, the state's about ready to play a video deposition. The deposition is the testimony given under oath outside of court. I don't know what it may have been for, but outside of your presence. I don't know exactly the location of where the deposition was taken. But the point is that it was under oath, and you will evaluate the testimony of this witness and the credibility of this witness the same as you would with other witnesses who appeared in open court, sworn into and testifying in front of you. Did they get that thing working again?
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Ms. Jacobson. Would you please state your name and spelling?
Sure, it's Jenna, J-E-N-A, last name Jacobson, Jacobsen.
Ms. Jacobson, do you recall an incident that occurred on April 17, 2018 at the dealership?
Yes, sir.
Were you employed at that dealership?
Yes, I am.
You still?
Yes, sir.
In April of 2018, what was your job?
I was a client advisor, which is a salesperson.
And where is the dealership?
It's located in Brentwood, off Mallory Lane.
In Tennessee?
Yes, sir.
On that day, did you happen to come in contact with an individual that here?
Yes.
Could you please describe what time into contact?
Sure. Towards the end of my business day, so later in the afternoon, after 5, around before 6-ish.
And so what happened between 5 and 6?
Sure. He came into the dealership directly to our front desk area and asked to see a vehicle.
And were you the person at the front desk at the time?
I was.
And then what did you do? She asked to see the vehicle.
So I asked him what he was interested in. He gave me a description of the vehicle that he was looking to see, which was an X6. We had a few of them on the lot, I think 2 at the time. So we proceeded to walk out together to look at the vehicle.
So, I guess just talk about as you're showing him the vehicle.
Sure. So we walked out together. He followed behind me. He was just quiet. We walked out, and I headed towards the vehicle so that we could do a demo and go over the vehicle and go over features and show him what he was looking for.
And could you describe the individual?
Sure. He was taller, blonde, in jeans and a baseball tee, just an ordinary customer from the beginning, as far as looks go.
And so, once you get to the car, what is the interaction?
Yeah, so once we get out to the vehicle, my job as a salesperson is to demo that vehicle with the potential client to go over the features, what they're looking for, ask them questions so that I can assess how best to help them. So once we got out to the vehicle, we did a short little walk around. We got in the vehicle together where I'm able to demonstrate some of those features to him. Features like our GPS system and how things work. So we proceeded to sit in the car while I kind of went through a brief demo on the vehicle.
Did you have a car on or did the demonstration of GPS and things like that?
Yes, so we do turn the vehicle on during the demonstration. It allows all the electronics in the vehicle to be turned on and accessed. Things like volume control for the radio station, the main center console screen becomes available, which will have weather, news, things like that on it that we can demonstrate to the customer.
As you are doing the demo, did you have to have the key? Did you put it in the ignition?
Yes, so there is not an ignition for the key unless it's manually assessed. So it's a key fob. As long as you have the key fob, you can enter and exit the vehicle with a touch of the door handle. So as a salesperson, as long as I have the key to the vehicle, I can access that vehicle. And it's something that we keep with us, either in our pocket or a side door panel, wherever we might keep it. We keep it during that demo, so it's in our possession. It's not until the customer opts to go for a test drive that we turn that key over and we go on the test drive with them. 9 times out of 10, the key is never in the customer's hands. It's always with us because we're in the vehicle during the demo.
While we're showing him the part of the car, showing the screen and how on works he is and whatnot, where is he?
He is in the driver's seat, passenger seat.
Was there anyone else with you?
No.
And so, what if anything is he saying to you?
Not much. It was a quiet interaction between me and the customer. He didn't give any information as to what he was looking for in a car. Most clients during that interaction are asking us questions, whether the car's all-wheel drive or what the GPS system is like. They're looking for certain features, and it was a very one-sided conversation. I was trying to pull any information I could from him to figure out what he was looking for in his vehicle.
And so he just wasn't giving you feedback?
No.
At some point in time, did he ask to drive the vehicle?
He didn't ask to drive the vehicle. He stated he was going to drive the vehicle.
Okay, so it was more like, I'm going to take this car.
I'm going to drive the vehicle, yes.
Okay, and what was your response?
My response was to follow procedure, which at that point in time is to get a driver's license and an insurance card from our customers so that we're safe to go out the road for that test drive.
So, did you think he was just asking for test drive at that point in time?
Yes.
And so what did you actually take his driver's license?
No, when I made the comment, that's fine. I just need to get your driver's license and insurance. He said, I don't think you understand. I'm going to drive this vehicle.
At some point in time, did he attempt to put the car inside?
He did. The shifter that we have with BMW was a newer shifter at the time. It has a unlock feature on it. So you can't just push the shifter forward and go into a gear. You actually have to use an unlock button on that shifter. And he had tried to click the shifter into drive, but was not successful. And I explained to him about the button, and yeah.
Okay. And so he told you that you testified, he said twice that he was going to take the car. What happened after the second time he told you him to take the car?
He proceeded to ask if I had the key, and at that point in time, I said, yes, I do have the key. And I held the key up in my hand.
What did you do once you held the key?
At that point, he reached over and grabbed the end of the key and proceeded to pull that key from my possession.
Okay. He took it out of your hand?
Yes.
Did you put up any resistance to that?
Yes, I didn't let go right away. I was shocked that somebody was physically taking something from me. It had never happened to me before, so it wasn't something that I let go of right away. There was a pull.
After he physically took the key out of your hand, what did you do?
So as he took the key and I was pulled back towards him, I made direct eye contact with him and asked him if he was serious, and he proceeded to say yes, that I needed to get out. And at that point, I realized that the car was probably going to be taken from me, and it was in my best interest to let go of the key and to remove myself from the situation.
Once you got out of the car with the key, what did you see?
So when I got out of the car, I was agitated, so I slammed the door, stood there for a second, thinking, okay, like this is happening to me. And he proceeded to put the car in drive and then proceeded to head in the wrong direction towards the back of my property.
That's the lot of the BMW dealership?
Correct. There are technically there are 3 entrances, 2 to the main lot. And he proceeded to drive towards the back where there was not an exit.
Did he eventually leave the parking lot?
He did, yes.
Did you or anyone at your dealership contact police?
Yes,
And how soon after him taking the car did you?
seconds. We did at the time use an anti-theft device on all of our vehicles that allowed an app on our phones to track the vehicles. So that app was used as an anti-theft device as well. It had a trigger system on it where if a vehicle was taken, you could press a button and it would trigger the system letting the police department know that the vehicle was being stolen.
Did you discuss that this tracking device on the vehicle with him?
I did not. I discussed the GPS system, which going over navigation is standard in any demo. It's a strong feature for BMW. It's very intuitive and works quickly, so it's something that we typically will go over during the demo.
Okay. It wasn't part of your conversation that you would track that from your phone?
No.
Did you speak to the person and then?
Yes.
How soon were
They were there very quickly. I don't know an exact time, but they were there very efficiently.
Since this incident on April 17, 2018, have you seen have you learned the identity of the person that did it from?
Yes.
And you know, who was that?
Travis Reinking.
Ms. Jacobson, could you tell me, when Mr. Reinking, who said the person took the car, what was his demeanor as he's telling you he's going to take the car?
It was calm. He just stated, I'm going to drive the car. I mean, there was no elevation in voice. It was just a statement.
And was that his demeanor for the entirety of the interaction?
Yeah. Other than telling me that he was serious and I needed to get out, It was pretty level.
What do you mean other than that?
That portion, I guess, to me felt more intense because we made direct eye contact, and he was very clear that I needed to get out of the vehicle.
And do you, since you work at BMW, do you happen to have the key sample, the kind of key that was used?
Yes,
You have one?
yes.
Would you be willing to demonstrate for me how the interaction worked?
Sure.
I'm gonna ask you to say that. So, what part of the key was he on?
So I would have had the fob in my hand. I don't think it has a machine on it, but at the time, it would have had a key tag, which is an identification marker we use in membership to track keys. It was a laminated basement keychain that will say from here, a color,
Okay, so this tag is about the same size as the tag that was on the key you took. And so if I'm him, I'm gonna meet you holding the key. I want you to demonstrate how Mr. Reinking took the key.
so when he asked if I had the key, yes, then that we grabbed that key tag and proceeded to pull.
Okay. Did you continue to hold on to the key like I am?
Yes, sir.
At what point did you release the key?
When I looked at him and said, "Are you serious?" And he said, "Yes, you need to get out." And at that point, I let go and proceeded to exit the vehicle.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, how long do you think this interaction lasted?
I was probably in the vehicle with him 8 to 10 minutes. I mean, not longer than a normal interaction, just because there was a lot of me talking and not him, but a normal time frame.
About 8 to 10 minutes in the car, and it's how long from the moment you walked in to there to the time he's gone altogether?
Maybe 15 minutes tops. Trying to remember back that far.
Yeah, it's been a little bit less.
Correct.
Or maybe even a little bit not. So, was there, as you're describing the features of the vehicle, was there ever any discussion about maybe him having a vehicle trade in or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay, could you tell me about that?
Sure. So it is a question that we would answer or ask any of our guests, and that is if they're planning on trading a vehicle in that day. It allows us to gather information from the customer to know whether or not they're serious in making a purchase at that point in time. And it also allows us to offer them an appraisal on that vehicle. That way we can start a process and see where we're at.
So did you, when you asked him about training, did he say
He said he didn't want to discuss it, that we would discuss it later, which was an odd response, but sometimes customers don't want to give you that information right away. They feel like it's better to wait, so we waited. I didn't pressure him on it. I felt like, I was maybe pressuring the situation by asking him that question. He just did not want to answer that question. Correct.
Those are my questions.
Okay.
Good afternoon, James.
Oh, sir.
I'm Paul Brennan, one of the attorneys on this case. After the incident took place on April the 17th, 2018, you interviewed the criminal police department.
Yes.
And were you also, after that, sometime later, were you interviewed by a private investigator?
Yes.
And was that just a few weeks later? After the incident?
I don't remember the exact time frame of that interview, but it was following it.
Do you recall it, whether it was days, weeks, months, years, any kind of recollections about that?
It was a couple weeks from my recollection.
And the investigator, I think, interviewed you that week, right?
That is correct.
And it's fair to say that the events that took place on April 17th, 2018 were still fresh in your mind at that investigator.
Yes.
And you're aware that that interview was right before this deposition.
Yes, sir.
And your answers that you gave to the investigator during that interview, those based on your personal knowledge and personal observation which occurred on April 17th, 2018.
Yes.
So, it's my understanding, when did you first see Mr. Reinking? And where was he?
At the dealership, right at the front desk.
You're aware that prior to that, he had walked onto the line?
No, I was not aware of any of his behavior prior to my incident until after the fact.
Was there ever any vehicle or motorcycle, bicycle, anything that was found on the lot that was related to Mr. Reinking, to your knowledge?
No, sir, not to my knowledge.
Was there any indication as to how he arrived at the lot?
After the fact, I was made aware that he walked onto property. I do not know from where.
Do you know how long he'd been on the property prior to the
I do not know a time frame. I know he was on property long enough to select a vehicle of choice. That is all I know.
Is your understanding, was he with any other salesperson? When you said select a vehicle choice, was he with any other salesperson or was he walking a lot by himself?
From my understanding, he was walking a lot by himself and selected that particular vehicle on his own prior to coming through the front door and asking to see it.
And then, he came through the front door where you at the reception desk, is that what it is?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. And your job then was a salesperson for the correct?
Yes, sir.
And you appear to be a potential customer, correct?
That is correct.
So I guess you have your normal interaction and trying to see if he might be interested in selling the vehicle, is that fair?
Yes.
Then you said, I believe, that the two of you exited the
did. He was taller in stature, and the X6 is a hatchback sloped roofline SUV. It is one of the larger ones. It just isn't a vehicle that a lot of our customers ask for typically when they are of his height.
So in other words, with this size, that normally not be a part of the recommend, or I guess, just.
It wouldn't be a car I would recommend, but I have seen people of his height purchase the vehicle.
You suggested that you look at the slide, it's just not the X6.
That is
Prior to, entering into the X6, can you estimate how long it was that you interacted with him from the time you walked into the building until the time you got into the vehicle?
5 minutes.
You said 5 minutes?
Yeah, give or take. Yeah. The X6 was located a little bit out on the lot, so we had to walk out together, and that was the time that I spent with him.
Okay. And so, basically, you have a few minutes of conversation before you get into the vehicle, and I think you said, based on your recollection, that y'all were inside the vehicle together for approximately 8 to 9 minutes, or 8 to 10 minutes, just somewhere approximately like that. Okay. And I believe it's my understanding that when you interacted with him, that you felt like something was lost. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. And that it was something that I think you described as an incredibly strange interaction. Is that how you described it before?
Yes.
And are you talking about when you're seated in the passenger seat and he's in the driver's seat, and you're kind of trying to explain to him features that's not really what you would call a normal back and forth conversation? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you say that it was a strange interaction, something just didn't seem like it.
And there was no back and forth. So either he was just being an incredibly difficult client, or I was not talking about anything he was interested in, and I was trying to figure that out.
Okay. And while he was in the vehicle, was he trying to see what would work and kind of look at the dials and the buttons and things like that? Was he kind of messing with the car trying to see what different things it did?
That's my reflection.
Dennis, we've heard about the interaction when he took the key from you and you got out of the vehicle and got out of the police. Okay, at that point in time. And then, it's my understanding that you were able to observe them when you put the car in drive, kind of observe the path that he took. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is it fair to say that he kind of took a path that would not be the normal path that you would take if you were trying to steal a vehicle? Is that fair?
Yes.
He kind of went to the opposite way of the exit, is that fair?
That is correct.
And I think you used the term that it was almost like he was trapped in the back of the parking lot. Is that a fair statement?
There is no exit the way he went.
Right. And he was driving fairly slowly when he was in the parking lot, is that correct?
Yeah.
And in fact, he had kind of gone to the back of the lot and then turned around and started coming towards the front of the lot. Is that fair to say you were still out in the lot at that point in time? And so then eventually he got to the street and then pulled out onto the street. Is that correct? And you went inside the dealership building, correct? And I think you alerted your manager that it looks like cars and stuff.
The car was still there.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. You alerted the manager that the car had stuff.
Yes. Yes.
And you would agree that his demeanor was off, something was strange about him. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Now, when you were asked the question, would you say the normal questions that somebody would ask, perhaps if the car was stolen when it happened, did that make you think of something in your own personal life as an explanation as to what might explain the strange behavior?
Yes.
Okay. And is that you, at least at that time, you had a friend that you had been friends with for about 7 years. I don't need the person's name. But a friend that you had for about 7 years that suffered from, was paranoid schizophrenia. Is that correct?
That is correct. I don't know this friend's formal diagnosis, but I know that he had struggled with mental health issues.
Okay. But do you recall telling the investigator that you had a friend that suffered from, that was paranoid schizophrenic or suffered from paranoid schizophrenia?
Yes.
Okay. This friend that you had known at that time for a 7-year period, how often have you been around that friend?
Consistently.
Okay. So you were very familiar with the person's mental health issues.
Yes.
Were you familiar with that person's issues, or how they, let me ask this. So with your friend, when you were around your friend when your friend was medicated,
I was.
and were you able to observe that person's demeanor and the way they carried themselves?
Yes.
And were you ever around that person when they were not on medication?
Yes.
Okay. And did you describe that, I think, as a break? I think is the term you might have used.
Yes, a break in that when interacting with that person, sometimes they weren't always interacting with me.
Okay, all right. And to kind of get to the point, I think at that point in time, after you were asking this question about the coworkers, did you believe at that point in time that what you had observed was what you observed whenever your friend who suffered from paranoid schizophrenia had a break in their lives? Is that what kind of, you thought that's might have been what happened?
The break that I was referencing was his inability to just have a conversation with me. If he just felt checked out while we were interacting in that vehicle. And being that friend was so relevant in my life at that time, it did seem to parallel.
And I believe you told the detectives that. a few more questions. Do you recall, well, let me just, did you, when the workers were asking these questions, was he on drugs or something along those lines, did you tell them that something that kind of seemed like he was off of them?
I did. It was a direct relation to the friend at the time. Always, to me, in my opinion, he didn't seem inebriated or on drugs as far as what you would think. And I did make the statement that it was almost like he was off of them, like he just was off, was the word that I used. It was just off to me. The situation was off. I couldn't put a finger on it because there was no smell of alcohol, there were no indications of him being on drugs. So I think that is what I was reiterating to them.
Okay. And just finally, going back to the recording that you listened to right before the deposition, is that a recording of your entire interview with the public defender and an accurate interview with your interview with the investigator for the public defender?
I believe I heard it in the interviews.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Jacobson, do you know if Mr. Reinking knew the layout of the parking lot such that he know that when he drove to the back, he couldn't exit the home?
I don't know if he knew the layout.
Okay. And you said that he was driving slowly. You know how? What do you mean by that?
I mean, there was no sense of urgency. It's a carjacking is, okay, speeding off of your car, and that was not the case. He just pulled out, waved to the back, and at that point I realized he was going the wrong way and that he was going to have to pass me again to exit, and that's when I proceeded to run to the front.
And what about the pullout when you actually finally pulled out of the parking lot onto the street? Do you recall that portion?
There was, I do recall, didn't seem like he was in a hurry to get anywhere, when he pulled out of the lot.
He did or did not?
He did not.
He did not. Now, with regard to your friend, who struggled with mental health, you said that you told, I guess, the police that your friend had paranoia and schizophrenia. But I guess, are you saying today that you don't exactly know if that is the diagnosis that your friend had?
I am not a doctor and I have not seen the documentation that is his actual diagnosis. That is something that was discussed amongst the two of us. So it was an understanding that is what he was going through.
Okay, sure. And so you would see your friend, I guess, while he was on medication and also while he was off medication.
Correct.
And I guess, so you're saying you saw moments when he was off or in having and seeming like there was something not acting as he should be.
Correct.
And you are saying that was kind of similar to your interaction with Mr. Reinking?
Yes.
I think you described a scenario we discussed earlier today. Do you remember talking about a scenario of what it was like with your friend, having a conversation with him?
Yeah. I think we discussed with that particular friend, you'd be in a dinner situation or in a conversation and you weren't really sure if they were listening or paying attention. You kind of like, hey, like, I'm kind of talking to you right now, are you hearing me? Like, that was, had happened with that friend.
Okay, would you have to, I guess, get that friend to come back to understand, what you were doing or talking about?
Yeah, sometimes you have to just kind of reiterate the conversation.
Okay, to get them to snap back into where it is?
Right.
Okay.
But his focus was somewhere else.
Okay.
Whether it was over here listening to something else in the restaurant or over here just not
what you were talking about demoing the car. Well, was there a point where he kind of snapped back into it and understood clearly what he was doing, as far as you can tell?
I felt the shift when I asked about his trade.
Okay.
I don't know if that was a triggering question for him because he didn't have a trade or because he walked onto the lot or what, but it felt like at that moment, that's when he responded to me.
And so at that moment, he seemed to be very much in the conversation with you?
Yes, more so than any other time.
Okay. I understand. So, would you say he was checked out when he was demanding the car key from you?
No, he was very direct about what he wanted to happen.
Okay. Was he checked out as he was telling you to get out of the car? Okay.
That's all.
All right. Understood. So, did Mr. Bruno ask you to have moments of clarity? He asked you about moments of clarity and moments of not. I guess at that point, would you say that was a moment of clarity from Mr. Reinking?
I believe so. I believe I also stated that I felt like if I had been less confrontational or inquisitive, maybe he would have left with me in the vehicle. I think because I kind of resisted letting go of the key right away. I was a little bit more defiant. He was very direct and he wanted me out of the vehicle.
And Your Honor, you said last that the video and an original copy of the transcript was made cumulatively considered the next situation.
Video, right? Anything else?
Not with regard to the definition.
No, I mean, witness what?
Yes,
Yes, Judge, the next witness is Detective Desmond Summerall. He's being recalled.
You would raise your right hand if you want, please. You solemnly swear to affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. That is, you would be to step in
Detective, could you please state your name for the record?
Desmond Summerall.
And you have previously testified in this trial. I am specifically going to ask you about April 23rd of 2018.
Yes, ma'am.
In your previous testimony, you described a time where you were at South Precinct when Mr. Reinking arrived at that location. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And for procedural reasons, I was not able to ask you about this before, but what was the purpose of having Mr. Reinking transported to South Precinct that day?
So I could attempt to interview him.
And did you attempt to interview him?
I did.
And I guess, was that recorded?
It was.
And who were you with when you attempted to interview Mr. Reinking?
So myself and Detective Phil Clare.
And Detective, you've already said that that was recorded. We have the recording queued up as well as I have it on a disc. I would ask that the disc be made the next numbered exhibit.
Your Honor, objection is earlier than we have a recess.
I don't know what's on there.
That's why we were addressing this.
Come on. step out here for a few minutes while we take up the matter.
There's been reported public stuff, please be careful following these.
Please do not discuss anything about the case. All right, let's take them one at a time. Who is next?
Judge, the next witness would be Michael Murray. He owns National Coin and Currency. He was there on April 10th when Mr. Reinking came in to order the 10 silver bars that he paid $2,000 for that were in his backpack when he was located by Kyle Williams of the Metro Nashville Police Department. He interacted with him. He will describe that interaction, that Mr. Reinking was very calm. He was able to communicate with him. He understood everything he was doing. Mr. Reinking had an out-of-state check, and so he ordered the silver bars and then had to come back to pick them up. So on April 20th, Mr. Reinking showed up to pick up the silver bars, and they had another interaction. And again, Mr. Reinking was perfectly calm, able to communicate with him, very calm and understanding, none of the delusions that were going on. That's the purpose of the rebuttal. Now, it also relates to other factors in the case, but the purpose of it are these are people that interacted with Mr. Reinking close in time to the April 22nd event.
But you're not going to be allowed to use his testimony to argue premeditation.
Okay.
Because that should have come up in the case in chief. I will allow it for the limited purposes of establishing circumstances surrounding his mental state at or near the time of the event. And I will give a curative instruction to the jury in that regard. Because I agree with the defense. This bit about him buying silver and all those type of things, it's to be argued as part of the plan. Instead of committing his crimes and getting away, that goes to premeditation, and I sustain your objection as to that extent. I will allow it for the limited purpose of this mental state in terms of delusions and that type of thing. Who else do you have?
The other two witnesses are two DCSO corporals. They worked in the jail. Mr. Reinking was found with a styrofoam food container that inmates are given. He drew a drawing of the Waffle House shooting where he drew a Waffle House and stick figure people that were dead and drew himself shooting at the victims almost a year later in April of 2019. And he did that on 2 consecutive days.
What does that rebut? What does that rebut? And again, if they want to get into his mental state at the time he drew the drawings, we can get into competency. So that doesn't rebut anything.
What is it rebutting?
Judge, it rebuts whether or not he did this as a command from God. He's drawing it on almost a year anniversary, celebrating what he did. That absolutely is
Do you have
rebuttal
the
proof.
drawing? Was there any comments made about it?
There are no comments about it. We drew on the food package containers and they were collected by the CSO, reported to our office, and received by the Secretary.
There's also a probative prejudicial effect argument that goes with it, but it doesn't rebut anything.
Judge, the doctors testified that Mr. Reinking did this because he felt that he was compelled to. The state submits that these drawings show that he did this because he enjoyed it and he wanted to.
No.
Judge, I don't want to be, those are exactly, look at those two things. They're in evidence. They've read all that in. There's a spaceship on top of one of them, and the other one with the little caption on it is exactly what got read in through the experts about someone in there saying, making a statement. You know, him hearing a statement while he was outside the Waffle House.
Which is why it's relevant to the state's argument, because he's enjoying it, he's reliving it a year later.
That is case in chief. She's talking about premeditation again.
It is not
If she'll let me
premeditation.
finish, she's talking about premeditation again. She is saying this shows that he intended to do it and enjoyed it. That's what she's saying it shows. It doesn't, those food trays are testimony that's already come in through the statements. His state of mind a year later, or whenever it was, is not relevant. And the only reason she's trying to make it relevant is because of premeditation. It does not go to anything we have put in play. Nothing.
Judge, it absolutely goes to whether or not Mr. Reinking appreciated the wrongfulness of his conduct. It absolutely goes to that. We've had doctors get up there and testify that he made excuse after excuse after excuse for what he did. A year later, he is drawing about it, trying to celebrate it. That goes to wrongfulness.
So that's the point. Where's the proof of celebration? Is there somebody that's gonna say, yeah, he was laughing and saying how proud he was of himself or something like that? No. It's two food trays that are consistent with everything that the doctors have said he said.
Except for it doesn't have anything in there about God.
It has aliens on it.
Yeah,
Spaceships.
that's that spaceship,
Makes
which
it
is
more
part of
relevant.
it. Which again is not in, there's no, that not in contention.
God is the issue.
Well,
One of the focal points of this whole case.
but I'm sorry, Judge.
And there's nothing on there to suggest that a year later was any, that was a part of his thought process. I mean, he all those styrofoam lunch trays, or whatever you want to call them, he clearly shows shooting the two people outside. He clearly has the statement being made, that very offensive statement. He remembers people yelling, "Run for your lives." And it just shows him shooting upon them. It doesn't suggest that there's any influence whatsoever coming into play. You know, I mean, if he's got these people saying this, you know, why doesn't he have something coming down saying, "You gotta kill one more," or something suggesting that he was under the influence of someone else's. I mean, I think it's a jury question, is my point. I think it goes to his mental state as to whether or not he can appreciate the wrongfulness of his conduct.
Yes, sir.
So I will allow those to.
And just noting our objection, thank you. So, now back to this issue about playing this video.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
Okay.
And the reason I'm not gonna allow that is because, and I know that the law allows, this thing about the attorney, bring up the fact that he invoked his right to an attorney, but I think we've gotten that point close enough.
And just for the record, Your Honor, the state was introducing it to show his actual behavior during that interaction, how he said it, his demeanor, that he was calm during this entire process, which that has been proof that we've put in, and this just corroborates it, and we were prohibited from putting this in our case in chief.
I don't remember being brought up in case of chief.
And that's, it wasn't brought
I
up in
mean,
case.
yeah.
It wasn't brought up in case in chief. They brought it up during to Dr. Wood. And no, we have never disputed his calm demeanor. I think we've heard experts for 2 days say calm.
I mean, the whole time, I haven't heard anything from anybody that he was anything but calm after his arrest. So let's get the silver man and the two trays. And is there anybody else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you can sit down.
Thanks.
There's been nothing to refuse his demeanor throughout that whole period of time after his apprehension. Is the next witness out there?
Yes, Your Honor.
Jury right now.
What is the gentleman's name?
Michael Murray, Your Honor.
Oh, right, that's it.
Got one in the restroom, good. One's in the restroom, and the rest of them are on it. When we're finished with the testimony,
I'll, need to see the attorneys up here. Or at least a representative of the side, and then y'all can, what I have to talk to you about, what I can talk about tonight.
you ready for it?
Me too, please, call your next witness.
The state's next witness is Michael Murray.
You want to leave? You solemnly swear to affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes, it is. I think it was a good exchange.
Mr. Murray, could you please state your full name for the record?
Yeah, Michael Lawrence Moret Sr.
And can you spell your last name, please?
Sure, it's Mouret.
And you said it's Moret, correct?
Correct.
I pronounced it wrong and I apologize.
That's about right.
Mr. Moret, what type of business do you own?
I own and operate Nashville Coin and Currency. We buy and sell rare coins, precious metals, collectibles, things of that nature.
And your business, was it located on Chadwick Court in Brentwood, Tennessee in April of 2018?
Yeah, Chadwick Drive, that's correct.
And at some point, did you come into contact with Mr. Travis Reinking?
I did.
And can you describe that first time that you came into contact with him? Do you remember when that was?
Yes, ma'am. That was on the 10th of April. He came into the office. The office is set up for the public area. There's 2 desks where we had 2 secretaries. Each secretary had a client at their desk, so Mr. Reinking had to wait, and he waited patiently, kind of off to the side till it was one desk freed up. Then he approached the desk when it was his turn, and we did his transaction, answered his questions.
And what was it that Mr. Reinking was there to purchase?
He said he wanted to buy 100 ounces of silver.
And how much does 100 ounces of silver cost?
At that time, it was approximately $1,700.
And I guess, was there any discussion about what form of silver he would be purchasing?
The standard discussion people will ask questions is what size is it available in, the premium above the world market price, is it above for different sizes? So the cheapest way to buy it is a 100-ounce bar of silver, which is about a 7-pound brick. The next size down that's very popular is 10-ounce size bars. And then you can also pay more and get little 1-ounce size pieces for convenience.
And do you recall what size he ended up purchasing?
Yes, he wanted 10 of the 10-ounce size bars.
Okay. And how did he pay for that?
He wrote us a check on a bank out of Colorado.
And so was he given the silver and allowed to leave that day?
No, we actually come back next week. We said we'd get it for him and let the check clear. So approximately a week later, we called for him to let him know his order was ready to pick up.
Okay, and so you contacted him by telephone, is that correct?
That's correct. We tried a couple of times. The voicemail was full, or we didn't get contact with him directly. I think he ended up calling us back a day or two later.
Okay. And that first interaction that you had with him on April 10th, during that entire sales process, was he able to follow your conversation and answer all your questions and make decisions about what type of silver to purchase?
Well, it wasn't very complicated or long. I think he kind of had an idea what he wanted, so that we had a discussion. I typically probably showed a couple of different options. He chose that. We explained about the waiting a week for the check clear and finished the paperwork, and he was done, so.
Okay, and was there anything unusual about that interaction?
No, he was very polite, kind of shy. Nothing unusual stood out.
And you said that you contacted him by phone and he returned to come and pick up the silver.
Yes, we called him about a week later, and I think it was 2 to 3 days later he called us back.
And do you remember what day it was that he showed back up?
It was on the 20th of April, so 10 days later.
And can you describe the office on that date?
Yeah, the office was quieter, so he came right up to the desk. He said, "I'm here to pick up an order of silver." He said, "Do I need my driver's license?" And I said, "No, Travis, I recognize you. No problem. Let me just get it." And I went to the back and get it, delivered it. He looked at it. He signed off the receipt. They picked it up, and he was done.
Had you required his driver's license on the first date of purchase?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when he returned, he actually asked you, "Do I need to go get my driver's license?"
Right, and at the time it didn't strike me as odd. I assumed he had left it in the car, but he never said, "I don't have my license." He just asked, "Do I need my license?" And I said, "No, I recognize you, so it's fine."
Okay. And that conversation, was there anything unusual about that?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, if I can have just one moment. I don't have any other questions.
No question.
Thank you.
Say we talk Corporal Jacob Young. Solemnly swear to affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes. Good afternoon. Can you please state your name and spell your name for the record?
Jacob Bianchi is JACOB BIANCHI.
Where do you work?
Davidson County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you worked there?
It'll be 5 years this February. This month.
In what division are you working now?
Currently, I work in the training division as an instructor.
Where were you working in April of 2019?
I was a corporal assigned to the Maximum Correctional Complex.
All right, and in that complex, can you describe the layout?
Yes, in the complex, there's 8 pods. Each pod has 32 cells in it, and each of them are laid out in 2 different buildings, 4 pods per building.
Okay. And in each one of those pods, are there a number of cells?
There's 14 cells on the lower tier and 18 cells on the upper tier.
And are those essentially single rooms?
Yes, sir.
One person per room?
Yes.
All right. Can you describe the door to those rooms?
The door has a single window, about 1 foot by 1 foot, and there's a pie flap that's used for food distribution and collection.
Called pie flap?
Pie flap, yes.
Do those individuals that are staying there, do they have access to pen, paper, writing instruments, that kind of thing?
Yes, sir.
During April of 2019, were you familiar with Mr. Reinking?
Yes.
And how were you familiar with him?
When I was assigned to the unit, I would be interacting with him periodically throughout the day, usually for any medical procedures or appointments that he had, food distribution, collection, recreation time.
How often in a given month would you be assigned to his unit where you would be interacting with him?
Maybe 5 to 10 times a month, depending on how the schedule worked out.
All right. How limited were your interactions with Mr. Reinking?
Most of the time, they were pretty limited. He was a quiet guy, so very minimal conversation with him.
All right. On April 1st, 2019, were you assigned to his pod?
I believe so, yes.
Did you have interactions with him on that day?
Yes.
Were some of those interactions both giving him food through the pie slot,
Pie flap,
through the pie flap, and then retrieving the trash at the end of the feeding time?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to pass you an item and ask if you can identify this. So if you can take that out of the plastic. Do you recognize this item?
Yes.
What is it?
This is a styrofoam tray that we serve food into the inmates.
Okay, and this particular styrofoam tray, who did you get that from?
Mr. Reinking.
Okay, and was that what you collected at the end of his dinner feeding?
Yes.
All right. Judge, if we could have that marked as the next exhibit, Exhibit 74. And Judge, yeah, hold on a second, Judge. I'm going to ask, once that's marked, I'm going to ask it to be published the old-fashioned way where it's actually passed to the jury.
You want it in the bag?
So if we could pass the jury the gloves while that's being tagged, then we can pass it. Yeah, give me your gloves because I'm going to put it on this. Okay. All right, Corporal Bianchi, is this tray essentially in the same condition as it was when Mr. Reinking passed it to you?
It appears to be, yes.
And when he passed it to you, had he attempted to do anything to cover up this artwork?
To my knowledge, I can't remember.
He hadn't torn it into little pieces?
Deleting.
What, if anything, did he cover it with when he handed it to you?
I can't remember.
Okay. All right. All right, for the record, can you describe the artwork?
It looks like an individual, and there's a truck there. An individual appears to have some sort of item or weapon, maybe, that is firing some sort of projectiles at individuals inside a building that's labeled as Waffle House. And there are captions above some of the individuals in the establishment. There's a moon and there's a couple stars up in the sky.
All right. Do you see the stick figure that is lying prone on the ground?
Yes.
Do you see the dark area right under that figure?
Yes.
How are the eyes drawn on that figure?
They have X's.
And how are the eyes drawn on the other person who apparently has these dashes going through the top part of the neck or the bottom of the
They are X's also.
What do you see in this picture, or what is in this picture, that would be indicative of self-defense?
Objection, Your Honor. It's totally irrelevant. It's total speculation. Can't answer that question.
What in this picture is drawn that would indicate God commanding the person with this gun?
Same objection. This man is a sheriff's deputy that is in the jail.
He has no expertise argument, but.
Okay. When you received this item from Mr. Reinking, what did you do?
The first thing I did was I notified my supervisor at the time that I've received a strange item and that he should be aware of it.
All right. And once you alerted your supervisor, what did you actually do with this container?
I can't remember exactly. I think I just set it to the side though.
Okay. When you were interacting with Mr. Reinking on April 1st of 2019, what was his demeanor?
Very calm. He's always been very respectful, followed institutional rules.
Okay. So not just on April 1st, but during the entire time that you interacted with him?
Yes.
While he was in your custody, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you feel like, or strike that, did he ever get a write-up for disobeying rules?
To my knowledge, no.
Is that normal for folks in that section?
No objection.
What did he ever do in his interactions with you that would indicate that he didn't understand rules or was not able to obey rules?
Again, objection, Your Honor. It's totally outside of it's not rebuttal.
Yeah, I think at this point in time, we're talking April.
2019, roughly 1 year later.
And not immediately after the event.
Please get to the next one. Okay, that's all for this witness, Judge.
Wrong.
Judge, our next witness is Corporal Sags. Foundation, just go straight to on April 2nd. Did you get that?
Would raise your hand if you sworn, please. You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes, we'll make a little bit stand on step one.
Would you please state your name and spell your name for the record?
Tyler Saggs, Tyler Saggs.
Where do you work, sir?
For the Davidson County Sheriff's Office.
And what do you do now? What is your current assignment?
Currently work second shift on the Transportation and Court Services Division
Where did you work in April of 2019?
at the MCC.
And while you were working at the NCC, how often in a given month would you see or interact with Travis Reinking?
At least once a week.
All right. On April 2nd, 2019, were you interacting with Travis Reinking?
Yes, sir.
And did you interact with him as far as giving him his dinner on a styrofoam tray and then retrieving that tray about a half an hour later?
That is correct.
All right. Let me pass to you an item. You can take that out of the wrapping. Can you identify this item?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
The styrofoam tray.
Who did you receive that item from?
From Mr. Reinking.
Is it in the same condition that it was in when you received it from Mr. Reinking?
It appears so, yes, sir.
Judge, I'd like to make that the next exhibit.
And,
And then I would like to publish that to the jury in the same manner as we passed the previous exhibit. is this styrofoam container in essentially the same condition that it was in when Mr. Reinking handed it to you?
It appears so, yes, sir.
When you saw this, what did you do?
I notified my supervisor, and I believe we took a picture of it before we turned it over to my supervisor.
Why did you do that?
Kind of out of character.
And had you been told, well, strike that. That's fine. That's all the questions.
Deputy, just a few questions. The top right of that, what does that appear to be?
It appears to be a flying saucer.
Right, spaceship, right? Some kind of flying saucer.
Yes, sir.
And there appears to be aliens inside of it, right?
Possibly.
All right, how many of them?
It appears to be 3.
That's all.
Anything else?
State rescue,
Third model?
One moment, Your Honor.
There we are. All right, members, Jerry, excuse me, that concludes the evidentiary portion of the trial. The next phase of the trial will be closing arguments. I can, without even having spoken to the attorneys, I don't anticipate that the hour and a half we have left would complete the closing arguments. And certainly if it did, it might, they may feel rushed to accomplish that. I do not like breaking up the closing arguments. I like it to go smoothly from one to the next so you can kind of absorb it all together. And I prefer that closing arguments and jury charge be done back to back as well. So rather than get into closing arguments where they're kind of giving you their opinions and you sleeping on it and start letting those opinions settle in, I'd much prefer that it's easier for you to remain open-minded if we just stop right now. And tomorrow, we will do closing arguments and charge. You're going to get this case tomorrow to begin your deliberations. The bottom line, please remember, the trial of the case is not over. You can't go back to the hotel tonight and be discussing anything about it or whatever, what's transpired in this courtroom. Keep your thoughts to yourself, remain open-minded. Since you're under the protection of my staff, I'm not concerned about the news media or anybody communicating with you about the case. So just go back to the hotel room and relax. And I understand there's a birthday on this jury. Happy birthday. And if I could sing, I would sing you happy birthday. But you do not want to hear that. So I hope you have I'm sorry your birthday is being spent away from family, friends, and all that type of stuff. So I guess you'll just have to celebrate it another day. But my staff will do the best they can to help you enjoy it this evening, okay? All right. With that, y'all can go ahead and leave and... All right, court's adjourned. If I can just see the attorney back there. All of them? Yeah, I'll just have them all back. We'll do a conference.